What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. And I'm glad you guys are joining us today, this week, because this is the official Formula One True North eulogy of Daniel Ricciardo.
Come a long way from where we began. I'll tell you all about it when I see you.
So obviously, as everyone knows by now, Danny is out of a seat. He's gotten replaced by Liam Lawson. But we thought, given his stature in the sport and how much he's done to raise the popularity of it, and not to mention, his pretty admirable career, we thought it'd be a nice time to kind of look back at Daniel Rick, the race car driver, the Formula One driver, the friend, the social media icon. I'm not really sure where else I'm going with this, but we're going to take a look back because I think, he's brought a lot to the sport and he deserves a little recognition as he's gotten over the weeks, but we're going to give it our take. So I'm going to throw it over to our resident Daniel Ricciardo expert, Edward, to start us off. And maybe we could just get your thoughts on Daniel, his, I guess we're going to call it a retirement for now, or are we? I don't know. But start us off.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm an expert, but the allure of the guy in itself, he's been a really good ambassador for the sport in terms of the new fans that came through Drive to Survive. A lot of his antics and the way he presents himself to everyone else. He's like a likable character that is easy to relate to, and he wears his heart on his sleeve and just owns his persona. And there's probably not a single person on the paddock that doesn't like Danny Ricciardo, besides probably his engineers when he complains for the different teams that he was on. But besides that, he's such a good ambassador for the sport, for Drive to Survive, or the early 2010, 2011, all the way to 2014, when he started to join the sport. He was that good entry host ambassador. And I honestly, I felt bad the way he was treated, his exit. But then again, just like every other driver, it is a business. Everyone knows the exact same thing, so feel bad for the guy. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's his time to finally leave the sport and possibly do something else.
Thomas, what do you got?
Not too much to say on what Ed said. He's a great guy. Love him as a driver. Great ambassador for whatever team he was on. Loved by everyone. It's really a shame that Visa Cash App did dirty to him just like that. Very disrespectful in so many ways. It's almost like he didn't even know, or there was this whole big mystery exactly what was going to happen, in regards to the fans and the way he was speaking. And lots of people are assuming he's gonna, his last race, which ended up being his last race. I think this situation could have been handled so much better. But in regards to a personality type, yeah, I think they did a mistake of letting him go. I know they're saying they're gonna throw out a lifeline to him, and I don't know if that's been accepted by him or not. It would be a good opportunity for him and for the team to actually take that lifeline and get some of those fans back and respect to what little or Red Bull Racing has left. Because when they did that to him, they lost a lot of fans, a lot of respect. There was a huge outrage. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Drew,
Are you done Googling facts about Daniel Ricciardo? Are you ready?
No, listen.
Okay.
I appreciate the poke, you prick. But the reality is that when I started watching Formula One, Danny Ricciardo was driving for Renault. I think I might have caught the tail end of him at Red Bull, and ultimately that was the beginning of the end for him. After he went to Renault, you know what? I would argue that McLaren was probably the beginning of the end, because that's where you saw Danny Rick lose a little of the fire, the light that was inside of him. Because like even when he was at Renault, they weren't a very competitive team, but he still was positive about things. And obviously his pinnacle of racing was probably in the 2014, 2015, 2016 seasons when he was at Red Bull and they were starting to become competitive, even though Mercedes had a wildly dominant car during those times. He would still win some very iconic races and was very competitive against some of the teammates that he had. Once he got into McLaren, he was supposed to be the senior driver who was going to have Lando Norris kind of learn from him, and that didn't happen at all. Lando got in, and Danny Rick was very much the type of driver who was able to roll kind of into the corners, high speed, being able to not use the brakes on the car. And unfortunately, that was the exact opposite of what the McLaren car was doing at the time. And to Lando Norris's, benefit, he was a new driver to the sport in Formula One. So he got to learn all these habits on a car that didn't need specific driving style. And unfortunately, that style was against what Danny Rick was doing. So, Danny Rick kind of started sliding downhill at McLaren, and back to my point, you could kind of see a little of that fire get lost in his eyes, and and then he gets tossed around and ultimately has to retire, or is forced to retire at Visa Cash App Racing Bull, and ultimately I think that because of his persona in the paddock and how likable he was, how much of the star he was at the Drive to Survive series, which made Formula One front and center for a lot of people and brought it to the masses. Danny Rick is a huge portion of why people watch the races. I would argue it's something similar to Taylor Swift with Travis Kelce, and half the reason that all these girls are starting to watch football now. And if Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce broke up, all those people would stop watching football again. I'm going to put that on the same plane and say that there's going to be a lot of people who are just like, Danny Rick's not there. So that being said, like, am I going to miss the guy? Yeah, of course I am. Do I think Red Bull's got something in store for him to kind of keep him around a little bit while his attention is still there? Absolutely. Whether he's going to take it or kind of go off into the night, with his pride held high, I can see that too. But I would love to see him around the paddock as a replacement for Nico Rosberg, because I think the guy's a dick.
Nico? Oh, Nico Rosberg.
Yes, Nico Rosberg.
Sorry, I got confused for a second. You're talking about as like a commentator.
Correct.
Yes.
I think that's his
right.
next step.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's what he does. Yeah, you're right. I was sorry. It was like the thing I got mixed up with Nico Hulkenberg. I was like, what are you talking about? Anyways, so I think this is actually a good, your entry into the sport, Drew, is maybe a good example. Now, my question to you was Daniel part of that appeal? Was he like, what got you into it? If it was kind of after his peak, let's say at Red Bull, did he have anything to do with your entry into the sport or your interest in it?
Now that's a funny story, sir. I'm glad you asked. Well, I ended up buying a Mercedes AMG, and I started wearing these hats because I thought that made me cool. Well, my friends love to put me in my place and say, why are you wearing that hat? You prick. Because you drive that car, you're an asshole. And you know what I did? I started watching Formula One just to spite my friends so that I wasn't a bullshit fanboy and I could legitimately wear these hats with a smile on my face. And so because of that, I actually kind of jumped into the sport and really, really liked it. And here we are podcasting about it a year and a half later, but I did it out of spite. I got into the sport because I didn't want my friends to have a reason to call me out.
Out of spite or out of shame? I'm not really sure which one. A little
Same
bit of
thing.
both.
Yeah, same thing.
Call him A, call him B. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So it had nothing to do with Danny at the time.
Had nothing to do with Danny, but he didn't hurt though. Like, if I could be 100% honest, you got in and you had a funny guy. I can get behind that. You need a little comedy because it's a pretty serious sport. You know what I mean? Everyone's pretty angsty about shit, and you could see fights in the paddock and people getting all pissed off, and then guys cut. And he was just a comedic relief on a consistent basis, right from the start. And was that because he was already not competitive at that point? Maybe. But I just think that his persona was something that was magnetic for me.
So you used the Taylor Swift analogy and Travis Kelce and football and things like that. Obviously prior to Netflix and maybe during like those beginning Netflix years, I think he was probably a big personality, big draw into the sport. I don't know if he has the same kind of pull now as he did back then. Yes, he's lovable, but are people going to be flooding the sport because he's now gone the same way that you suggested people would stop watching football because they break up? I'm not so sure, because I feel like now especially the newer generation of fans, they have their Orlandos, they got Piastri, they have like a whole other group of people that they lean towards and are fans of for completely different reasons, right? There's a bunch of like fangirls and fanboys for these guys. What do you think is the impact of leaving the sport? Assuming, let's just say he stays out, what do you think his impact of leaving the sport is going to be?
Well, the thing is, like, I've been trying to rack my brain in terms of like the current lineup right now and who can actually replace Danny Rick from an entertainment standpoint. Driving standpoint, everyone pretty much can replace him, but from an entertainment standpoint and just the likable ambassador that he is, I don't know who can right now. Maybe Lando, but Lando's too like focused on his battle between his teammate trying to get points and whatnot. I mean, I would probably think of Valtteri Bottas would probably be a good replacement for him in terms of like the ambassadorship, but he might not even have a seat next season. So, I mean, it really depends now on what the fans are really looking for. I mean, there's a lot of drama there, 100%. That's no question. The outrage online when everyone found out that Danny Rick was losing his seat, it was insane. And again, that's another good play by Liberty Media, possibly, and leaning into that narrative and just like milking the crap out of it. And yeah, again, it's good publicity for the sport, good publicity for Danny Rick, and possibly, still have a little bit of dollars towards his name and towards the brand that he carries. But yeah, I mean, to this point, like I just want to look forward and see where he goes. Maybe he will go down the path of ex Formula One drivers going into Indy or going into NASCAR and just like being able to hit the Triple Crown somehow, because he did, if I'm not mistaken, I think he did win Monaco once. So if he does the Indy 500 and then hits Le Mans, then that's a Triple Crown right there.
Piece
So
of cake.
he has. I
Easy
mean,
peasy.
he has one of three. I mean, you want to look at it from a standpoint of
Pretty much there.
what's next. Yeah, what's next for Danny Rick? I mean, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's I just want to say, like, it's the handling of how things panned out, what next steps are for Danny Rick and the sport of Formula One and his career. And then, I mean, I'll still follow him. I was a big fan of him when he started, because man, he was crazy when he was in early years Red Bull. Like, the late braking techniques that he has was, oh my God. And then I felt bad actually when he moved to Renault, because like I knew he was already, really making strides in Red Bull, and it was a miss. Like, and as Drew said, like after going to Renault, going to McLaren, it was just like a downfall from there. And I just felt bad for the guy. And one bad not really bad mistake, but one bad luck charm or whatever it is that hit on him one after the other. It's just like it never stuck after Red Bull. So it's too bad, but I wish him well.
Well, I think you answered my question, Thomas. What do you think his impact at leaving the sport is going to be, if any?
I think it definitely is going to leave an impact. What got me reignited, Drive to Survive got me reignited into Formula One. That's when I really started to watch it like religiously back. I was watching it occasionally, following it occasionally, but Drive to Survive really reignited. And part of that, at the early days, it was essentially, the whole story was essentially following him at the beginning, the Red Bull, the Renault, a little bit of McLaren. So I feel like I got to know him as a person, as a driver, and he had this very, as we all agree, very likable persona about him, very positive, thinking and looking towards the future. Seems like a good guy, good driver. And so I really got to like him as a driver, and it was cheering for him, wishing him, that he would do really amazing stuff in the race. And then as time went on, the with McLaren, as we all touched upon, that's a sad tale that it didn't work out for him. The way it worked out, and then how he got essentially pushed into Visa Racing, Cash App, Red Bulls, whatever. I think that was the final nail in the coffin. And plus, the way essentially he got let go from them with no respect, the social media posts, how Red Bull Visa Cash App got like a lot of heat for that. A lot of fans are saying that's it. I went under social media and some fans were saying like, that's it, I'm not watching, F1. Some people are like, I'm not supporting this team anymore, what you're doing. So I definitely feel like it's definitely going to have a short-term negative impact on F1 for the time being, just because probably like me, a lot of people also got into F1 because of Drive to Survive and feel the same way. I think if things were different, I think the outcome would have been different too. But I think to Drew's point, there's a lot of, or Drew's or Ed's point, a lot of new drivers coming in. They're bringing in their own fan base. So I think it's going to be a short-term, I guess, downfall, if any, in Formula One because the way he's leaving, but I think it's going to recover. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to have an effect in the slightest. And the reason I think that is because Danny Rick, okay, let's play this out. Let's say a lot of the new fans came in because of Drive to Survive. Sure, 100%. It was one of the only sports that came back immediately after COVID because, they started doing the bubble thing really early and a lot of people started gravitating towards Formula One. So it was one of the only sports on television. Sure, Danny Rick was a highlight at the time. Absolutely. But over the last few years, as Drive to Survive has matured, the racing has matured, anyone who came in because of Danny Rick has not really had much to cheer for. They've seen the decline and demise of Daniel Ricciardo, and anyone who's a Formula One fan because of that has likely found another team or another driver to support during that time. And as sad as it is to see Danny Rick go, love the guy to death, I'm not going to stop watching Formula One. I think I'm a pretty average person. So like, if everyone is similar to me, you found somebody else or some other reason to like Formula One. Because if Danny Rick is the only reason you've been watching Formula One, you probably haven't been watching all that.
No, I totally agree. It is what it is at this point. Like with all the drama that's been happening in the sport, like now we're possible that we might have another champion this year. Who knows? I called it out early, but we'll see.
Fucking
My God.
the Oracle's
I'm
back.
starting
They had a
again.
little sprinkle
Jesus
that one on there
Christ.
for you, bud.
I had to. Come on, guys. I had to.
So Drew, I agree with you. I think he's going to leave a void that will be quickly filled, and I think by Austin, really, if he decides to ride it on a horse and do a little PR, that's great. But beyond that, it's like you've had your time. Great guy. Wish you the best. See you later. What's his wine brand? Enchanté?
No, that's his clothing brand.
Oh, that's his clothing brand. Okay,
Yeah,
never mind. He has a wine brand though, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, he's all set, man. That guy's
That's what
good.
I'm saying. He's not
He's gonna go
worried
race
about
some
anything.
NASCAR. They'll bring him in on like some specialized like road tracks maybe in NASCAR. He can
Yeah.
like rip around, have a good time, be a star in that series. But I think in terms of Formula One, I think his impact is essentially done. It's over. And to answer Ed's question, who's going to take over? You know who's low key pretty funny? Alex Albon. I don't know if you guys ever seen any clips from him.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
He's got like
I
a
can see
quirky
that.
little sense of humor.
I have. So my boy Swish over at the Track Limits podcast, he was interviewing Alex Albon last week, and I watched a couple of clips that he posted. He's actually a pretty funny dude. I'm right behind you with that. And like, I heard all about their like little group chat that all the F1 drivers are in, and I think he was asked like not exactly like what kind of talk and what kind of chatter goes on in that group chat, but how fast was Danny Rick kicked out now that he's officially not a Formula One driver. And like, I don't think Albon like gave that up, but he was just like, yeah, there's definitely a group chat that gets pretty heated sometimes.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I wonder what that statute of limitations is. Like,
Yeah.
how
do you get
long
a
before?
week, a month? Like, what's the
I don't
carryover?
know. Is it personality dependent?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's,
right?
like how quickly was Sargent kicked out versus like
What's-
Daniel?
Oh, that's a good
Or
question.
just let in.
Maybe Sergio was never invited. Who knows?
Correct.
Maybe they
yeah,
had
yeah.
like a
Yeah, they had the driver chat and then the
Yeah.
driver chat minus Sargent.
yeah. They had the driver's chat and then they had that
Oh.
driver's chat.
Yeah.
Pretty funny. So I think we've kind of established, like, he's kind of, he did a lot of work early on building up the sport to a wider audience really quickly. Emphasis on quickly. What do we think is what's his legacy? What is he gonna be leaving as his legacy in Formula One when you think of Daniel Ricciardo?
Shoey. That's it.
Interesting.
The shoey.
The shoey was
Anything
legit.
else? Anything else? Like
The belly flop Jesus thing into the Monaco
yes,
pool.
that one too.
That was
that's a good
legendary.
second. Yeah, that was a good second in Monaco. Oh yeah, in the swimming pool, 100%. But yeah, the amount of people he had do the shoey with him, I was just like the germaphobe that I am, like kind of gross. But yeah, like Patrick Stewart, what's his name? Picard was actually able to do the shoey with him as well. I don't know what race it was, but I saw some of the highlights that he did that. But yeah,
In
for
terms
me,
of a
it'll be
true
Shoey.
legacy, though, I don't know if he's gonna leave one. Like, I don't know if he was that impactful of a driver. Like, there was other drivers that have won similarly-ish races that we don't even talk about. So like, unfortunately, this type of sport, you have to be a great to get like remembered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we get Sebastian Vettels, we get Fernando Alonso's. They were recent, but they were multiple time champions. Your Michael Schumacher, your Lewis Hamilton. But these guys are like greats that keep getting talked about. There's not a lot of goods that get talked about. And I think Danny Rick was on the better half of good for a short amount of time. Sorry,
You know
bro.
what? And I tend to agree. When Walker asked that question, the first images that popped in my head was the shoey, the flop, and one of his races, Monza, for whatever reason at McLaren. Those are the only three moments that actually popped in, memorable moments from him. Like, I would have to think really, really hard to pull something else out of there because for the time being, I can't. So I agree with you, Drew. Legacy, probably not. Nothing. Essentially nothing. Yes, you're right. As hard as hard as it is to say, there's nothing.
But in Danny Rick's defense, I also started watching Formula One after his like moments of greatness. Like, I got in around the 2016. I bought my car 2016. It was a 2017. So yeah, so fuck off. It's the truth. You guys can laugh all you want, make the giggles all you want, walk right here. But
No
I'm saying,
judgment
just to
here.
put it in a timeline. So like 2016, at the end of 2016, I was watching whatever races. Like, they were like the end of his goodness. And then all of a sudden he was at Renault driving in a yellow car. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? So unfortunately, his moments of greatness were just outside of my realm.
You know what? Thank God you balled out and bought a AMG instead of like a Honda. 'Cause we wouldn't be here.
Facts.
Yeah.
That's true.
We
Yeah.
I
got
almost
plus-
looked into
plus
getting
those
that.
high lease payments.
That's, oh my goodness, bro. I traded in a BMW and my lease payments were still astronomical. But I almost grabbed one of those, or what are they called? Alfa Romeo, the Giulia.
Julia, yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
are
yeah.
nice.
That was nice,
very
bro.
nice.
It was a slick car, but yeah, I'm not gonna say it. It's not very nice to say.
I see where you're going with this.
Mhm.
I'm going to give my 2 cents on Daniel. I think his legacy, first and foremost, is perhaps going to be a cautionary tale. Cautionary tale for other drivers who have some early success, maybe think they're a little better than they are, maybe get some bad advice from some greedy managers. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like his is, a driver who had lots of potential, was seeing some early success, and then he just got too big for himself. He thought grass is greener, grass is greener, grass is greener. And he left something at Red Bull when maybe things were going to get a little bit competitive with Max coming in, when he maybe didn't feel like he was getting that top dog status that he thought he deserved. And he ran, he fled. He's like, fuck it, I'm going to go to Renault and things are going to be better there. And then they weren't. And he said, I'm going to go to McLaren because that's going to be better. And it wasn't. And I think that aside from being like a good guy and the shoey and all that fun shit, I think like his legacy is like really of like a driver who had a lot more potential than he was able to show because of I don't know if we want to call it impatience. I don't know if we want to call it ego, whatever it is. But I think well, fortunately or unfortunately, it's just going to be his story and part of his story. And I think, obviously, for me, it's easy to judge, right? Because I'm sitting here, he was out there racing, making millions of dollars. Everyone's probably telling him he's a man, like, and these drivers have an ego to begin with. You have to, I would assume, right? So his tires are getting pumped hard. And it's easy to kind of fall into that trap where you think you're the best and you deserve X, Y, Z. But that's what I think is going to be his legacy. And I think it's a cautionary tale for lots of other drivers. Just realize, like, think about this shit. You're not bigger than the sport. You're not bigger than your team. And, well, very few are. Let's put it that way.
Let me follow that up with a question.
Yeah.
Who do you think's the most likely on the grid to follow into that cautionary tale right now?
Valtteri Bottas.
What? No.
But
I think it's already out.
How is that an answer for every question to you, Thomas? That is ridiculous.
Because it's true.
It's not. It's not true at all.
He was at Merck, he number 2 driver. Then he went to Alfa Romeo. He didn't do
not by choice.
Not by choice.
by
He
choice.
didn't go there because he wanted to, because it was greener there.
being. So he kind of did go by choice. That was the best
All right,
choice
so-
he had for the time being.
You have a couple options, Thomas. I'm either going to edit this out of the podcast or I'm going to leave it in because that's ridiculous.
Leave it in. Leave it
I'm
in.
going to fuck.
This is Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri would have I understand him wanting the respect to maybe have a bit of a longer term contract, but he didn't go to Alpha because he thought it was going to be a more competitive car, so he could be the man. He went there because they wouldn't give him a 2-year contract.
There was nothing really better for the time being out there, so he kind of had no choice to go there, or he had no
But
other choice.
I'm talking of somebody who's on the grid right now who thinks they're starting to get punked at their current team and thinks that they can go to another place and it's going to be better there.
I feel like you have an answer, Drew, but I want to hear Ed's answer first.
Honestly, this is a quick answer. Carlos Sainz. I feel
Again,
like
though, that's not his choice. This is a not choice thing.
dude, he had the choice to go
No, he didn't.
for any team. Carlos
Drew,
You have a
Sainz.
choice to go to any team.
Against one, so just stop.
He had a choice. Like he could
That's
have
also
gone.
yeah. That's also an odd answer, but carry on. Sorry, interrupt.
He had a choice. Like he could have gone Audi. He could have gone and tooted his horn with Mercedes, or even gone for the Red Bull seat. Like, you know what? He has the chops. He's been winning this year and last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
the
he
choice.
got booted out. He didn't leave by choice. He got booted out because Hamilton signed.
I understand that. What the point I was trying to make at is like when he got booted out of Ferrari, we all know that he was going to be out. But he had a choice in terms of like going to another team, and he had the long procession of like, is it going to be Alpine? Is it going to be Williams or Audi Sauber? Or there's so many teams that he could have chosen, and
True.
he was waiting for that perfect team that would give him what he wanted and be the ace driver that he wanted to be, because he didn't want to be like the situation that he had with Ferrari, that Charles Leclerc was number 1, he was number 2, he was booted out. That's kind of like where the setup is right now. So I have a feeling that if he chose Williams because he knew that he's coming in from a position of strength, that he's going to be number 1 driver. But I don't know if that's what that's going to do with his driver stock. Is he going to perform there? Is it going to be that downfall that Danny Rick went through with Renault, even if he wasn't pushed out of Red Bull, with Renault, with McLaren, and then to V-Carb? As you said, cautionary tale.
I don't know if you guys fully understood the assignment. I'm
No,
going to give
they
you my
did
answer,
not.
though.
Yes,
I'm
I want to
giving
hear
you my
it.
answer.
I fucking hope that it's along the same lines as something. The question that I have.
Go for it.
I think it's going to be, I don't know the driver, but I think it might be someone from McLaren. I'm not sure. I think there you have 2 guys that want to be top, that are competitive, that feel like they deserve that number 1 spot. And I think you can only have 2 number 1s for so long. And if Lando doesn't win this year, and if he doesn't catch Max, and next year you start having a little bit more friction because they come in with a competitive car from the start, they're both driving really well. I think one of those 2 drivers could make the jump because they want a little bit more RESPECT. And if I had to guess, I would guess it would be Lando.
Thank you for understanding the assignment. That is not the answer that I had in my head, but yes, that is exactly the answer I was looking for. I was going to go with Max Verstappen because I think that Red Bull has a bit of a downfall right now. I think he might have an opportunity at another top running team as they get better because he's, well, Max Verstappen. And I think that there might be a little bit of a misstep because I think Red Bull has the pedigree to make things happen in a big way. And I think that if Max makes a jump, which he has been rumored to be doing over the next couple years, that he might be making a bad step because he wants to jump where, like you said, Walker, where he thinks it's greener. And Max, I had it in my head, but I would argue that your answer with the McLaren boys was probably more poignant in relation to the realities of something that's going to be coming up in the next year and a half, 2 years.
Max didn't come to mind, and I feel like it might be because, you know, it's almost akin to like a Lewis Hamilton situation where you achieve so much and you maybe just want to try something else or you want like a different challenge. It's an interesting perspective. It would be interesting actually to like look back in history when drivers change teams and see how many instances there are of drivers switching teams and finding, let's call it, immediate success within like that following season. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Lewis.
Unless they're going from like Lewis would be a good one actually.
Yeah.
Unless they're going from like a really shit team to a really great team. But Lewis went from a championship team to a
loser
championship team.
Yeah, but they ended up being a championship. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so well, there you go. There's my answer.
Very intellectual conversation, gentlemen.
So I think there's only one way to wrap up.
Okay.
Here we go.
To wrap
Here we
up
go.
an episode like
I was
this.
waiting for that.
And it's been a while since we've all been here, so we haven't played in a few weeks, which means we might be a little rusty, but doesn't seem to matter because we're always rusty. But in honor of Daniel Ricciardo, we're going to play a special edition of Name That Sponsor, Daniel Ricciardo edition. So I'm going to name 3 sponsors. They were all sponsors for cars that Daniel drove. You have to tell me what that company does or did, if they're not in business anymore, and which era of Daniel they sponsored. Red Bull, Renault, McLaren,
I
V-Carb.
love it.
Wow.
First
you made
one.
you made an impossible game harder. Love it, buddy. Love it.
First one, and interestingly enough, we've actually used some of these sponsors in the past. So we'll see how your recall is. First one is DP World. DP World, like David Peter World.
Thomas, you're up, buddy. You have to go first so that you don't.
I'm going to say McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say logistics.
My next,
Ed?
I would say Renault software company.
I'm going to go with McLaren, and they're a print company.
Okay. Thomas, on the board, buddy. Coming in with logistics.
Man.
About
There
time.
you go. DP World is a multinational logistics company based in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and he was on at the time Renault. Ed and Thomas.
Oh.
There we go. Stacking some points. Number 2, Geox. Geox.
Going to say Renault. I'm going to say like office software company.
Ed.
Okay, I know the team. I think Red Bull footwear.
Okay.
I'm going to go with McLaren, and they make like footwear and outdoor gear.
All right. Ed with the sweep. Red Bull and footwear.
Okay.
All right. Ed's picking up 3 points today, Ed.
That's big, bro.
That is big. All right. Last one is Orlen.
Orlen is like a fuel, oil, not supplier, but like maybe a refiner or something like that, something with fuel or gas.
Mm-hmm.
Or the car would probably be, I want to say Red Bull.
For the team, McLaren, Orland sounds like a watch company to me.
Okay. Drew?
I'm going to go with McLaren, and they are manufacturer of machinery.
All right. Thomas, picking up a point for oil refinery, fuel refinery, and they're on VCarb.
Okay.
Because Orlin in Lithuania, there's gas stations, Orlin gas stations. That's how I know that answer.
That's
you go.
why. There you go.
Recapping the score, it's actually incredible because Thomas improved his score today by almost 50%. He went from 40% actually to be exact. He went from 5 points to 7. So that's a big bump. So third place, we have Thomas with 7. In second place, we have Ed with 12. Also a big bump today, 3 points. Way to go, Ed. And Drew, off week, buddy. 1 point. Sitting at 17.
That's it.
This is like the Max and Lando race to the end, championship race.
We got
It's
what,
happening.
6 more races, 5 more races in the season? This is going to get tight, boys. Well, how many more weeks do we have left in the year?
What do we have? 4 more races? 5 more races? I don't know. This Formula One purgatory has to stop soon, though. Okay, we're in a dry
Mental
spell.
health check. Everyone's still okay. Everyone's still okay with not having another
I'm
race.
there.
Yeah, well, you know what? If you guys want to talk about it, if you're going through a little F1 withdrawal, come reach us in the Discord channel.
Exactly.
Find the link.
Good segue and a better plug there,
Thank
Walker. I like it.
I love it.
Find the
I
link in
love
the
it.
show notes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, tell your friends. And yeah, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week to talk about something. Who knows what, because there's still no goddamn racing. But we'll be here. Until then, ciao for now.
It's lights out and away we go.